Welcome, Mary. Welcome, Ron. Welcome, Gina. Welcome again, Jen.
It's Mary Cruz. All right.
I can't miss a Phil Fergus presentation. I mean, seriously. I
Oh,
haven't talked
it's
to you in 100 years. How are you, sir?
doing great. I must have known you 120 then. That's lovely. How are you doing?
I'm fabulous. Living the dream.
That's the way it's supposed to be, Mary.
Jim, I haven't seen you in a while. How are you?
Fantastic. You're certainly an HDI legend, and always an
Goodness.
honor to have you join any sessions we have. Looking forward to our summit coming up in Nashville in less than a month.
Oh my goodness.
And I see Roy on. Oh my, talk about another legend.
You should join us. It'll be a great time. Uh,
I'm,
Kickoff in 2 minutes, by the way.
I'm a rumor in my own time, Phil.
Welcome, Roy.
I see Mary Cruz.
Hey,
I see
Roy.
you, Jim. I see Phil. Gina Montague.
Oh, that's Gina. Hi.
There's Mary.
You blur my background, like see all the crap in my office.
Let's have the fun.
Ugh.
So I'm going to start everything on time at 1 o'clock. We've got 125 RSVPs, so I certainly expect other attendees to join as they come back from lunch and as the session continues. This is recorded, so I will post the presentations on the Central Florida chapter website, hdicfl.com, and I'll mention that in a couple minutes. But 1 minute to go. Maybe I should start these sessions more at 1:30 Eastern time.
I've
Then
got a
it'll be
few.
1:35 when they show up, Jim.
Or I could schedule it at happy hour, but then the discussion would be a lot longer.
I'm
I
going to
had some,
start on happy hour.
I had some people from Australia and Singapore and India complain about the time. I said, just register and you can pick up the recordings.
Convenience is the key.
Don, Scott,
Bill, how are you?
Chewy.
Good to see you guys. Good to see everybody.
Good afternoon. Welcome. And there, Chewy.
Chewy, have you always been with Mayo?
Yes, ma'am. I just gonna be 26 years in January.
Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
that's awesome.
My husband and I had an opportunity to experience Mayo Clinic in the spring of 25. And I have to tell you, I was absolutely, I mean, talk about being impressed with the customer service of that organization is just a ridiculous understatement. I could not believe, I mean, it was awesome. Just incredible patient care, customer service. We went to the Mayo Clinic here in Scottsdale, just unbelievable. Just talk about absolutely a perfect example of what anybody would want to experience in customer service and patient care. It was just off the charts.
That's great. I love hearing those. Thanks for sharing, Mary. I mean, it's I haven't been to Arizona or Florida campus, but they do really strive to create that one Mayo experience. So no matter which campus you're going to, the experience is transparent. So it's really great to hear those stories. I love that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Mary. And with our focus on customer and patient experience, I mean, this could be the topic for a very compelling presentation. But good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Rive, and I'm your host and the president of the Central Florida chapter that is providing this virtual event. Uh, Appreciate you coming. We've got a very special speaker in the legendary Phil Burgess, who will be informing us about this valuable metric called time to smile. I will share my screen. Here is the agenda. We'll start off with a few minutes of HDI news, followed by Phil's presentation, open it up for Q&A, and then after a wrap up, we will have a survey, which we would greatly appreciate any feedback that you have. And you can also use it to reach out to Phil for additional information. I'd like to start off by giving a hearty thanks to our sponsors, both at the national and our local chapter level. They make everything that we do here at HDI possible in terms of in-person and virtual events. I'd like to thank our national sponsors, Robert Half, who also is the sponsor of our Premier Awards that we present every year, and you'll be hearing more about that in a few minutes. They're a diamond sponsor. We also have platinum sponsor Splash Top and bronze sponsors ASPG and Team Dynamics. For my Orlando Central Florida chapter, we have ASPG, Easy Vista, FMX Solutions, Modus Create, and Process Panda. Please explore these organizations. They all have unique value propositions that they're eager to share with you. In terms of our nationwide virtual and in-person events, each one of you are more than welcome to attend any that are convenient for you. This is the QR code for the schedule of events. And if you're traveling, feel free to visit in another chapter, any chapter in the nation. I've provided the website link, and the next virtual event that I will be hosting will be in October with our own local chapter officer, Nancy Robinson, who is a world-class HDI instructor, a very dynamic and inspiring speaker on leadership and other topics. And she's also leads the IT service desk at Health First. She will be presenting Leading Out Loud, Confidence, Chaos, and Coffee. I love the title. We also have regularly scheduled interactive events with the HDI and the ICMI community. These are informative, fully interactive. The QR code for registering for these events is in the presentation, and I will be posting the presentations and this recording on the hdicfl.com website no later than 11 p.m. Eastern time this evening. As you know, we have a YouTube channel, Bites and Banner, with interviews of industry thought leaders, and it's very informative and entertaining. Please feel free to check that out. Also, mark your calendar, December 9th, our HDI Service and Support World virtual event is going to be taking place. There's the QR code to register for free, and that should be a lot of fun. As you know, we've refreshed a lot of courses at HDI and made them better. And these are the latest updates and the timeframes to help you navigate the calendar. You've got the August training calendar, a QR code there, and then on our website, we have the whole schedule, as well as on thinkhdi.com. You'll find the complete schedule as well. I do want to add, I attended the Mastering Quality Assurance for IT Support and Service Teams course and the Coaching for Quality and Capability. Both of those courses are excellent, and they were taught by a great instructor, Deborah Monroe. So if that's a topic of interest, please feel free to sign up for those courses. As you know, in addition to our free HDI community memberships, we have the paid memberships that give you a large discount on annual conferences and training. And we also have a student membership available as well. And starting today, we welcome your nominations for your top performers, award nominations for not only Best Service and Support Analyst and Technician, Best Service and Support Manager, and all the traditional awards we like to recognize annually. This year, we've got a brand new award known as the Best Team Lead Award. So we're hoping to expand the recognition. It means so much to every nominee and their teams. Uh, you do not need to be an HDI member to submit nominations, and there are no limits to the number of nominations you can submit. There is the website link for submitting your nominations, and we will be accepting them through Wednesday, November 4th. Again, without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker, Phil Vergis, who's going to teach us about time to smile, fixing the second job your AI can't see. Uh, Phil has been well known for so many years as an industry thought leader in customer experience and employee experience, business transformation, and effective applications of artificial intelligence. And I want to give a hearty, warm welcome to Phil Vergis.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Great.
loud and clear.
I will get started with sharing. And that should be screen 2. Do you see the screen?
It's populating now.
Yes.
I can see it.
Super. All right. Give me 1 second. All right. So before I start, I would love it in the comments if you can just drop me a note if I've met you or if we have met each other, or if we have worked together or anything. Just drop a note. I'd love to read those comments afterwards. I won't have a chance to see all of them at the moment. And Jim, if you can just keep me on track, you probably remember I can go on and on for way too long. So maybe about 10
Ever.
minutes before the end, you can just give me a heads up.
Sure will.
So I'm going to walk you through something that's never been rehearsed. So you're the guinea pigs for this, but I'm also going to walk you through some things that I think could help you out as I've thought through things and worked through my own clients with. So the concept is called time to smile, and I'll introduce this concept of a second job and how it ties in with AI and how we can work all this together. So the story starts really back in my early days at HDI, probably 6 or 7 years after I began getting involved with HDI, way back in 1999. Akamai was a company I joined, and the premise of the company, the challenge the founders were given was the internet, which was just starting, as you may remember, is going to crumble under its own weight, i.e., the more it gets popular, the way the internet was architected then, it's going to fall apart. It'll get too busy. There'll be too many errors. So Akamai came up with it was the MIT-based spin-off, came up with a mathematical technique that said, why don't we instead of putting content in one big server farm, put it on servers closer to the end users on many, many networks, on many, many machines. And at that time, as you may remember, SaaS, cloud, edge, DevOps, customer success, all these terms didn't even exist. So we were doing crazy things at a crazy time. So that's start of the context. So the company grew very, very quickly. When we went IPO, when we went public, we had about 1,500 servers in 55 different networks. A network might be AT&T, another one would be Sprint, et cetera, et cetera. And we were in 24 countries. In 2 years, we went to 13,500 servers, over 1,000 networks from 55 and 66 countries. And the reason we grew was a very particular reason. They did a very smart thing. They said, look, get in as many networks as you can. As you get into more networks, you can sell it to them saying, instead of paying for backhaul bandwidth, going to these big server farms, you can serve your customers content much faster, much cheaper, and if you have it on your own network. Then we went into the customers and said, hey, prospects, Disney and others, why don't you come on these local networks close to you? It'll be much faster, cheaper. And as they put more and more content on Disney, Apple, the iTunes, all that came on Akamai, that created more networks wanted to come in. So it was a beautiful flywheel. The more networks got us more customers that got us more content. If you see me looking left and right, that's just my other two screens. So apologize. So again, I'll set the context a little bit here because streaming was becoming very, very big and it was very difficult because it was bleeding edge and it was all manual. Everything had to be just right. Unlike this Zoom call, unlike many other calls we do today or streaming, at that time it all had to be planned. The concept of truly live spontaneous didn't exist. Everything had to be set up in advance, whether it was Steve Jobs' keynote or anything else. So the way it worked was the customer had an event. It could be Steve Jobs' keynote. They would basically send what they were doing normally into a technology called the encoder that then pointed into one network and one spot on a particular network. And from there, we distributed it to the edge and eventually got to the customer. And they were the event and the encoder and pointing to the entry point were all the customer, and the rest of it was all internal. So remember, this was the wild, wild west. We were growing very quickly, and the internet was never, ever built for streaming, ever, even today. So we grew very quickly, and then 9/11 happened for those of you in the US, right? Market crashed, networks went bankrupt, and customers went bankrupt, and entire business models went crashing down. And our servers were on those thousands of networks, and in our customers' dreams were in it as well. So the entry points were in quicksand because the networks were going bankrupt, right? So if you remember, we had the event, like the Steve Jobs keynote, you could be having a particular event. All this had to be set up in advance. You can't suddenly say, sorry, we've spent a year promoting this and it's not going to happen. And when the entry point, so the networks, the encoders, they pointed to an entry point, which is on a machine in a customer in a network. The networks were going bankrupt like crazy. They had overbuilt their data centers. They had built too many networks, and they were crashing out and going bankrupt. So what we had to do was to send people out as we learned a network might go bankrupt. We had to go in and yank the servers out. Because if they declared bankruptcy, we had to leave the servers in there, still provide the service and not get paid, right? So a bad situation all around. So the problem with this, of course, was when you yank the encoder out, now the customer that spent all this time pointing everything to be just right live, where you cannot have a mistake, now it was changed. So it was a mess for everybody. It was all hair on fire all the time. And every group did whatever it took to try and move that entry point to some other place. So that's the context in which it worked, right? So every group was solving their own emergency. And by solving their own emergency, they made it worse for the next group. The network team heard there might be a network going into bankruptcy. They'll send people out, yank the servers, tell us in support, or tell the other groups who will have to go contact the customer, and the customer might have fired people there. So we didn't know who to contact. They had to make changes live under big stress. It was a mess all around. So we were hurting each other, and none of us had any time to do anything about it. We all had our own goals, our own pressures, and our own measurements. And we used to call it hair on fire. You can see why I don't have any now. So the C-suite basically said, look, fix this. But you need to fix this with two conditions. One is help our customers, right? Many of them were themselves going into trouble. So don't focus so much about our pain, think about their pain. And the second is at the same time, slash the spending on networks, because we ourselves as a company were in trouble. and figure it out really, really quickly. So we ended up pulling different groups together. Nobody had the time. Imagine fires all over the place, right? Priority zeros, escalations, customer escalations, internal escalations. We had to get all these groups together and to work together. And one of the things that came up once we understood how each group worked and what the pain point for each other group was, one possible solution came up. What if the entry point, remember the event points to the encoder that takes the broadcast into a digital signal that then goes into that entry point which was failing? What if that entry point was put into a telco hotel? And the telco hotel is really a neutral building where hundreds of networks meet. So even if one specific network goes under, it doesn't matter because another one can pick it up. So the encoder doesn't move, the person doesn't have to point it to a different place, but this was much more expensive. So this is an example of a completely counterintuitive example, right? Cut costs, but when we looked at the end-to-end process and realized all the pain yanking things around we're doing, we were able to say, let's bump up the per unit cost to reduce overall pain. And that ended up reducing the customer's effort, massively reducing the employee effort. And that year we saved $33 million. It's just groups of people with no time under extreme stress and emergency. So that's one example of learning how an end-to-end process and knowing what the pain points are can make a difference. The problem is that this often works in an emergency, right? You know you cannot do anything normal to get better. So what happens when you're actually talking about a place where it's business as usual and it's a slow burning fire that will cause a massive problem, but you don't see it yet because everything seems to be okay? So I'm going to walk you through this example. It's an example I've lived through as well, but it's a slightly fictionalized example. So this specific example didn't happen. So it's a $20,000 device used in the medical world. And it is a breakthrough. In other words, it allows the customer and the patient experience to be far better, much better than anything that exists before. It has to be really high quality. It also has to be FDA compliant, which again is the US medical place that decides if something is medically safe or not. And so it has to, so those of you who are working in the insurance companies or finance or medical, you know how tightly regulated it is. Think of it this way, even if you don't do manufacturing. But it has to be FDA compliant or it does not work. So this device is made in Asia, and a 5-cent screw becomes hard to place. So a $20,000 very complex machine. This is because of tariffs and supply chain problems. You can remember all the problems that we have had. The company works really, really well. The machine is really well built, and the process to set it up and get it to customers and train customers, all that is really, really well done because you cannot afford to make mistakes. The problem is, when you think about this, how they started to solve it. Sourcing went out and found and worked with engineering a 5-cent screw that is very similar to the one that existed. They test it across many different models. It all works beautifully. They send it off to quality. Change management says, okay, this is 5 cents. It does not need to be escalated. Off it goes. Finance is happy because it doesn't stop the shipping out of a $20,000 machine plus all the servicing that comes out of it. And so it ships. Every step was right. The standard operating procedure was right. Every internal dashboard was green. And everybody in the company was notified, we're making the change, here's what we did, and off it goes. You can imagine, right? A technician goes in the first time that box is shipped and reaches into the toolbox to pull out this really slick machine. Guess what? The screwdriver and the screw doesn't quite fit. Sitting in front of the customer who's got no time has given you a 30-minute window that takes sometimes a month to set up a machine that's supposed to change their practice. Technician comes in with a screwdriver, cannot get that to work. Think about all the impact to the customer, to the resellers, to support, to training, to knowledge base, to returns, and of course, sales, future sales, all because of this 5 cent screw where every department looked like it's going to work fine. All the change notification was done, but it messed up. It turned out that before this really exploded, so I'd said this was a slow moving in the sense that it was distributed around the world. So different groups didn't find out about the problem centrally, or couldn't notify each other about the problem centrally because it was spread across the world. Fortunately, the manager caught it because he knew enough about manufacturing, logistics, support, the people who did installs, and was able to put all this together. But it took a hero to see it was one thing that actually caused this ripple effect across. In the emergency example, it was many people doing heroics to fix things, but still not seeing the full process. So both these are important use cases. One is an emergency and one it's not. But I think both really can cause serious problems if it's not thought through, particularly when everything looks like it's okay, which is the more dangerous case. So basically, what happened is the screw shipped, but the knowledge didn't. And that was the key part. So I'm going to talk next about the second job. And it's an important concept, and we will build into that into AI. And again, how I believe we can get all this back to tie this all back together to this time to smile concept. The second job. The second job is everything you have to do in order to get the first job done. What's the first job? The job you're paid for, the job your boss thinks you're supposed to do, the job that your processes and procedures say you're doing. But really, it's all the little exceptions, all the little gotchas you don't have time to write down. That's the second job. And it's often done by the whoever knows or whoever notices, and sometimes whoever cares. Otherwise, you can just do your job and say, that's somebody else's problem. So the better someone is and the more they care, the more of it lands on them. The second job, this unpaid job that they're not rewarded on in any way, doesn't show up in the metrics. And it's often your heroes who do it. So the second job usually comes on your heroes. How does this tie into AI? Well, you've seen this over and over again, right? Where your AI pilot works and the rollout often fails. We have seen a number of studies. Many of you probably know this already. So I happen to be on the board of advisors of a company, and I work with companies that at a level where we talk to the board as well. Often what's happening is people are throwing money at AI and saying, make it work because everybody else seems to have, or we will go out of business if we don't. And the problem, of course, is nobody quite knows what's working or not working. But an obvious case is the service support operations side. So we get a pilot, we try it with some work, it works. But then when we roll it out across groups, it often fails. And I believe, based on my experience, I know one of the reasons why. The first thing is that the second job we talked about, right? That's the job, all the extra work you've got to do, the heroics to get things done that are not documented, all the conversations you've got to have, all the workarounds you've got to deal with. That is written in invisible ink. In other words, it's not in any formal system. Who's got the time to sit down and write out all the exceptions all the time? It's not there's often not a way to capture it systematically. Often people don't have time to explain what they did. It takes more time to just to explain it than to just do it. And that's what I mean by it's written by invisible ink. It leaves no trace and it lands on the heroes. The second thing, as we looked at the two examples I gave, Akamai and the medical device manufacturer, customer context gets fuzzier every time work crosses a group because every group uses different words, different measures, and a different idea of what done means. So it's shipped. What does that mean? There's no bugs. What does that mean? It's installed. What does that mean? Everybody has their definition of what green or good or okay is and what they're measured on by success. But as you go from group to group, we end up solving what we know or we believe impacts that big picture, but we don't often know that big picture. And that's the two things that I think are very, very common. Written invisible ink, and the context gets fuzzier when you go from group to group. So that's often why AI will work in one group and fails between. The first group you do, you have your knowledge base. It can pick up the information, can look at your ticketing system, it can look at your standard operating procedures. And pretty much generally in one group, what you have, you'll tweak and adjust so it mostly accounts for reality. And AI Assistant looks like it fixes things well. But when it crosses groups, the crossings are where the heroes have to do the most compensation, the most adjustment. If you're a manager or leader, you know how many times you're the one that knows, Mary did this, or Mark did that, or Ashraf did this, right? You will know these things that other people may not know. It's not documented, not written. And so when you lose this context and the meaning, and when systems of record are all over the place, that's when it gets harder and harder for AI to keep that coherence between groups. So a simpler way to say all this is AI knows and learns from what is documented. It's often never met reality. So that's why it ends up messing up pretty badly. I believe this can be fixed and it can help AI. It takes the groups the work passes through, looking at the whole thing from the customer's side and holding each other accountable. So before I go here, what I would love to know is on this slide, the two things we now know, the second job is written in invisible ink and the customer context getting fuzzier. I can't easily see comments, but I'd love for you to just write out the comments. Just yes, no, do you agree, or do you have examples, or do you have a different opinion of these two statements? Because I think these are central to the time to smile and how to solve what we're talking about. And Jim, if you want to just capture that and just remember that, and I'll come back to it when we are done, that'll be fantastic. So I can't see people's faces at the moment. Jim, how are we doing?
It's
Let's
great.
go. You
We're on
can't see us
schedule.
in this call.
1:30.
Okay. So why it works in one group. So we talked about that. All right. So I'm going to reintroduce what I call time to smile. This is something I've been writing about since 2017, but I believe it's been now enhanced and brought better in a different way. It's not just a metric. Time to smile is really a moment. It's a time when the customer gets what they wanted and feels it. Smile. It's not just resolution, things like that, right? People have to feel whatever it is. But the part that distinguishes it a bit from XLAs is it also includes the employee side and it does not need heroes. So it's when a customer gets what they want and feels it, but they earn it every time without needing heroes. So you should not need heroics to get things done. So there are three things that push that time to smile further away. The first is things like customers just working too hard, right? When they're repeating themselves, chasing an update, giving up because the self-service is too hard, or the product is not easy to understand, or the service is not easy to understand. The second thing is our people are working too hard, right? So people having to work at nights when they shouldn't be working at nights on the second jobs. All these workarounds that you don't have time to update or write down. And in the example I gave of that medical device company, where the manager was the one who had to make phone calls to find out what happened and piece all these things together. That's all a burden on our employees that we have to remember. So time to smile is not just for customers, it's also an employee side. And the third thing is 60 to 90% of what we do has already been done by somebody before. And especially the routine stuff, right? Why do we keep doing it again? And why don't we automate it out? So I believe there are three questions that you all can do starting today that will help you reduce time to smile. And I've done this with companies at all levels. First is asking, how can we, of any process, how can we reduce the customer's effort? So, how can we make it as easy as possible for them to do whatever it is they're trying to do? And trying to do is not using your product, they're using your product or your service to do something else. I don't buy a car to make the car manufacturer happy or to give them 5 out of 5 on customer satisfaction. Whatever reason I buy the car for is why I buy the car. The car just has to work and meet and make me meet my expectations and make me smile. That's it. Second one is thinking through for any process or anything, any policy, anything we're doing, how do we reduce the employee effort of every group that it touches in order to get that smile on the customer? So, what do you wish we could have told you ahead of time, or you would have known to make it easy to do your job? Sometimes we don't get that context at all, right? I wish sales didn't promise something would be installed or fixed tomorrow, or management didn't promise that printer, that device would be fixed tomorrow, or somebody will come out on site free, no charge. That'll be nice to know and nice to not have to deal with. And conversely, would it be nice to know that, yes, there are 3 tickets open or 3 requests in, but would it be nice to know more than just they're a VIP or not, more about the customer, what they've done, why they're buying, what the impact is? So that's the kind of questions that we can know, I think, if you bring that out. And the third one is, what did we learn so that the next person or the system can use? Right? So it's applying what you learn. So make it easy for your colleagues, and I'd include AI agent as a colleague to apply what you've learned. How do we reduce the customer effort? How do we make it as easy as possible for them? How do we make it as easy as possible for me to do my job without having to have a second job? And then how do I make it as easy as possible for us to apply what we have learned, AI or not? If we do those 3 things, I think every handoff between groups becomes a handshake. But you have understood the context, make sure the person receiving it is good, and we're passing the context and knowledge along as we go along. I hope that makes sense. If not, just ask questions and I'll make sure to come back to it. So an exercise for all of you really would be, think of one handoff that you touch both sides of. Try it for 30 days. Try those 3 questions and see if it works, right? Which is, so if it's a handoff between you and the network team, between on-site sales and you, whatever it is that makes sense in your industry, ask these 3 questions of that process. How can I reduce the customer's effort? Why do they have to enter something 3 times? I know it's not my job. Maybe it's IT, maybe it's customer engineering, but I'm just telling you, there's 3 steps too many. How can we make that easier? Why do we ask them to repeat something? All those kinds of things you know. Second would be, how can I make it easier for us and you upstream or downstream so that we don't have to do that second job, because that's waste of time and energy. And then how do we apply what we learned so next time it gets better, faster, cheaper, more fun, more joyful for all of us? Those are the three questions I would suggest that you try it out with. The more you sit and understand the big end-to-end process, the more you understand why groups are doing what they do, the better you are in asking the questions and giving suggestions for answers. Just like in the Akamai example, moving those encoders, sorry, those entry points to far more expensive telco hotels, which seemed to contradict the slash the cost, actually made it much cheaper, better, faster for everybody. That's only possible because we all got together and worked on it. In the printing or the medical device example, same thing. It took somebody who understood end to end and what works between groups. And then if you ask those three questions, it'll make a big difference. So the way I see this is time to smile is the moment a customer gets what they wanted and feels it. And the customer could be your internal customer, right? If you're internal employees too. And it has to be in a way that you earn it every time without needing heroes. The three questions to help you get there, to help AI get there: reduce customers' effort, reduce the employee effort, let's get rid of that second job, leave what you learned where the next person or AI can use it. So time to smile is really a discipline and not a metric. And I leave you with this, that heroes were never the problem. Needing them every day is. And a company that keeps needing heroes will run out of them eventually. So the question for you: what's holding you back from starting with time to smile today? With that, I'm going to pass it back to Jim.
Okay, but let's open it up to questions. Feel free to submit your questions via chat. Well, while we're waiting for questions, Phil, uh, we've heard so much about AI use cases, and the use cases seemed bona fide for customer support, whether it's an internal customer or an external customer. Uh, Based upon the time to smile discipline, how do you recommend approaching any project for customer or internal customer support with an AI use case?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm working with one company in particular. They've grown from 40 people to over 200 people in a year. And explosive growth. They've gone to 15 countries, employees in 15 countries in that time. So very spread out. And they've just got tons and tons of processes, but very few of them excuse me a second, very few of them are written down or written down in a way that others can use because it's just decided so quickly. They're used to doing it. So now the discipline they're starting all the way from the CEO and the C-suite to the senior directors and frontline all over is they're trying to put those three questions into what they do, which is before we throw in a tool, because part of the problem is there's so many tools, right? There's excellent tools. ServiceNow, Salesforce, you name it, the Zoho, Freshworks, there's so many good tools. Some of your sponsors, but it's tying them into many other tools. That's the problem. And then you add LLMs on top of it, right? But to me, all that is the plumbing. On top of that, you just need some discipline that says, before we automate a mess, why do we make it messier faster? And that starts with the reducing customer effort, reducing the employee effort. And I
Mhm.
think vast majority of people don't think of the employee effort. And once you do those things, then you can put KCS swarming and automate that really, really nicely. But if you don't do those three things in that order, it doesn't help. But to do that also, you need to bring people together to understand how it works, whatever it is. If it's an internal process of onboarding a new customer, onboarding a partner, for example, anything like that, all the way to something truly external, where you have to work through resellers to get to their customers. We have worked this through with multiple people, but it's just getting people together. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, yes, thank you. I think, the discipline of the three questions is an optimal lens to view uh, any project to improve process efficiency and customer experience. And so often, the pressure is on to, uh, we've got to use AI to speed up and improve this process without looking at the total picture. And so thank you for bringing that holistic context to us.
Yeah, just as a quick example, the AI piece, for example, right? I think part of where I've seen a lot of the that's been sold about AI and the way we get seduced by it is very similar to, I think, the search days, right? Whether you talk about federated search or anything. Google works externally because you can have multiple places that tell you enough people like Donald Chu, Vernon, Ashraf, Mary, whoever have come in and said, people I trust say this is good. Enough people have verified it. So I have confidence that's good. In an enterprise, much more difficult because of the security and access to the information. Plus, is titles really the only way now to know who you can trust? So there's lots of issues, right? And hierarchy. But we were sold with the idea is that when you search now, you can find it. Well, you can find it, but you still have to curate, understand, and think. And I think that's the same way now. Yes, you have systems that can tie Slack and ServiceNow and Jira and Confluence, all these together back into your tooling. But how do you do it in a way where you keep the context, where you understand what Salesforce knew, what ServiceNow knew, et cetera, right? That's the next layer, but we have to know it first before we can give it to the systems. There are ways to get there, and there's some excellent tools starting out there that do it. But I think we still have to get the basics done.
And that's an excellent point. There's so many silos of technology that don't communicate with each other, so many different knowledge bases. Uh, we have a question from Vernon Clemens that looks like a great one. Vernon?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Hey, Varun.
Okay. So, Phil, first off, what am I doing wrong? You don't come see me. You come to my town and you can't even knock on my door on the way. Are you kidding me? I will never let that go. All right. So, you and I know we're gonna have a
Quick note, I'm at
conversation.
home here in North Carolina. So,
Oh, it would have been a long walk, but you still could have come by and said hello, And by the way, I may be in North Carolina very soon, but we can talk more about that when we
super.
meet personally. So my question is, one, I really appreciate everything you shared. Jim, I've said, I'm eager to maybe look about becoming a part of the Orlando chapter. We can talk about that and connect offline on that as well. Yet my question is, I'm implementing agentic AI solutions for certain. We're gonna run like speed and even fail forward through the process. Yet what we're also going to have is these agents are going to be part of my organizational structure, literally named. One of them is going to, by the way, report directly to me, and the agent is going to be called Vernon, which will be the agent who handles escalations because we allow any customer to automatically escalate to management. So there'll be a Vernon agent that will report to me. Um, and what I'll be doing as an example to others is that when I put it in the org structure, I'm going to have those superheroes accountable for the agent. So my question is my approach unique or is there an alternative way you would think about it? Because I firmly believe if you don't have a solid database, namely knowledge, your agent solutions are only going to be showing stupid faster than the human can.
Firstly, as despite your accusations of my not seeing you, I always have respected how far ahead you are of the curve. So I have seen. So firstly, hats off for that. I think the concept of putting them almost at the equal as a human, they're just another agent. It's another human almost in a way with different skills, right? That's it. I think that is fantastic. That I have not seen commonly at all and not in public. The danger I can see is if you haven't yet implemented this, is again the same issue between a chatbot and what happens here. For example, at what point will it know to actually escalate or not? Often today, most, not all, of them, of these agentic pieces, are fairly binary. It'll either hallucinate and make up an example just like an LLM, which could
Hmm.
be far worse when you're escalating. Oh, yeah, Vernon promised me, so why not? Because remember, the nature of most of them is to build to please.
Mhm.
So that's just be aware of that. And then the second thing is also if you can pull up the right systems of record and get the right memory across the organization of what's going on in Slack, what's already been discussed, because I may be escalating to you, but I've already talked to your counterpart in the network team or
Right.
operations or sales. They're giving me a different answer. Your chatbot gives me a different answer. How will we know that this in this thread in Slack or this reseller conversation in
Mm.
Confluence, sorry, or in Jira, a bug thing that's come in, right? That's the part I think that as long as you put the gates in or you start getting the right tools that can start playing with it, that's where you got to watch out for, in my experience.
I like your words because we did do an LMN using a product. I'll say it's Ghost Search, and we were wildly successful. I'm now trying to take it to the next plateau and not just pull information for potential use, but shape which should be the answer that could be given to the customer. Yet it'll be facilitated through the support person. So we're not replacing, we're augmenting and
Right.
increasing the value. And then the other thing that you just brought to me, and I'm going to make sure we do, is on the earlier conversations, is reduce the silos. And if we've done something with SaaS ops, if sales has done something, make sure the reach is including those sources, and therein hopefully have more of a collective communication. And then even on
Okay.
escalations, again, ferreting out and say, do you really need assistance? I'll route you over to create a case in our Service Cloud instance.
I think that's very smart to do. And I think the other gotcha I've seen with some of the companies I'm working with is the token consumption. So if you have an LLM underneath these tools, if you ask a question and somebody else asks the same question, are you regenerating and reusing tokens? Often they are. So again, think scale, ask how they are using it and what's consumed and what's charged. Because we've been spoiled by the SaaS all you can drink model.
Hmm.
Now it's a consumption model, and the point is consumption. So back to Donald, you were talking about your campuses, right, in Scottsdale and different places. So if they're recreating queries, or so, and your colleague has recreated a query, it still may hit the same token for the same query, the same answer.
Mhm.
That's going to get very, very expensive. And I've seen companies like, oh my God, first, like, here's everybody gets so many tens of thousands of dollars to do this. Then it's like, oh my goodness, what's happened? And when you dig into it, so I think all these are good issues, but just pay attention to really understanding what and why and how before we let loose, because there'll be things that are hidden and shifted that could be a real problem.
Okay, so I
Right.
take from your words, one, we got to have lunch. Two, you gave me accolades, which I humbly appreciate. And yet, three, you reiterated something I firmly believe. Do pilots phase launches before you go gangbusters.
Yeah. So I basically, apart from praising you, told you nothing new. So, but I'm happy. I'm paid a lot for the stock, so it's okay.
Thank you. That's a great point, Phil, regarding that consumption model, and a number of companies that are providing AI within the domain of their platforms have transformed from a percentage fee or a flat fee to a consumption model. And earlier this year, some pretty large companies reported that they already expended their AI token budget for the year. So while there's hundreds of billions of dollars being invested in AI, and of course new data centers, that the consumption is continuing to grow dramatically. So thanks for those pearls of wisdom.
Absolutely.
And of course, data cleansing is critical. For any AI project, you need clean data for effective automation.
And Mike, you had a question, a comment about holding you back from smiling. Can you just expand on that a bit, if you don't mind?
Sorry, pull the mic down. I was actually working on a Power BI that somebody else had created, and they have this extremely complex DAX to derive cities and states and countries. And I'm trying to add to it, and I think they got it wrong in the first place. So that's my second job.
Yeah. And I think once you see that second job, you can't unsee it. And I think that's our job as managers also, right? How do you make it easy for us to do the right thing? And the second job, as I think Roy wrote down, is often the more senior you are, the more complex your interactions. That's much more than a regular job in terms of value and often time and stress. And it's not recorded anywhere. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can put it in Slack, you can find it, you can get unstructured information, combine it, but it's how do you mine that so the next person in the system can learn? Because as you go across groups, as Vernon had implied, that's where the true value comes from. You can say, "Oh my goodness, I never even thought of what you're talking about," right?
Yeah,
And Mike,
exactly.
in your example, that may be the case too, right? Where somebody
Yep.
did something, you're like, "Hang on a sec, there's a much easier way to do that, or a different way,"
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Cool. Any other comments? Any challenges or thoughts?
Um, we're at the sort of beginning page of putting in agentic agents, and you're quite right. There's that push to get it done today, and sometimes I feel that yes, we want to fail fast and learn fast, but sometimes we forget about the customers at the end who are going to be impacted by our push to get things done like yesterday.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, if you really look at it, chatbots have failed for years for multiple reasons, right? And I think just thinking agentic equals chatbot, we're just repeating the mistakes we've made over the last 20, 30 years. But the potential is massive. It just means you got to rethink it.
Hmm.
And it's not massive once you rethink. Just bring people together, talk about it. It literally started once people start learning and seeing, oh, this is what you're trying to do across groups, just magic happens, right?
Yeah. And I think it's an important point that we bring customers into this as soon as possible,
Yes.
and give them the opportunity to test it, because I find a lot of things that go wrong are because we don't get end users or customers to test things.
Yep.
We get technical people testing. They know how the system's supposed to work, and they have it in their mind. They know, oh, if I do this, this, and this, I'll get that result.
Yep.
Customer end user is going to have a totally different viewpoint.
And I think to that point, Mike, in our systems, we often say we have talked to the customer. But in an example of if you abstract that one more level to a reseller model, it may be your conversation with the buyer in the reseller, buyer of your product from the reseller, which is not the same as the implementer, which may not be the same as the user. Inside the reseller, forget the reseller's customer, who's your end customer. So to your point, I think that abstraction makes it much worse, and we just sometimes just take shortcuts saying, "Oh yeah, we have talked to the customer." But when we understand
Hmm.
who the customer is, what the user is, what they're trying to do, very different, right?
Yeah, very different.
Thank you for sharing that, Mike.
You're welcome.
We've got about 4 minutes left. Any other questions? Scrolling through chat. Yes, Roy.
Just today, I was reading a post on Blue Sky. It was about a group that met for pizza after a particular event. And the person who was relating this story was relating their internal conversation as they ordered the pizza. And they said to themselves, I really like anchovies on my pizza, but nobody else likes anchovies, and therefore I will not order anchovies. They got the pizza and they confessed. They said, this would be really good with anchovies, but nobody likes anchovies, so I wouldn't order anchovies. Person two says, oh, really? I love anchovies. I would have loved to have anchovies on here. Person three says, really? I like anchovies too. Ask the question of your customers, of your service consumers, whoever it is. Ask the question, because to assume, as we know, the old makes an ass of you and me, and it's inside out thinking. You're not learning from the customer, and it's really important to do that. Just ask the question, and it can be very simple. Ask the simplest question you can, and try to empty your brain out before you do, so you're not making those anchovy assumptions.
Absolutely.
I'm going to call that the anchovy rule from now on.
Love it. The pizza rule and the anchovy rule. And I think also just don't forget the employees. Same thing, right? I think just.
Yep, same thing.
So
Excellent.
I think, Jim, you're going to put information in there, but for all of you who I don't know and haven't met, please reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. I'll connect. Just let me know that you were part of this. I'll be happy to accept, and happy to have any conversations anytime with anybody.
Thank you so much, Phil, for your enlightening presentation. Phil's website is burgessgroup.com. And thank you, everyone, for joining our virtual event today. Please fill out the surveys. That's how we continue to improve and to learn. And it's also a way to also reach out to myself or Phil. I look forward to our next event. Have a blessed afternoon.
Thanks, all. And a
Thank you.
shout out to Ashraf from Egypt. I know he showed up internationally. So thanks.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Cheers, all.
Cheers.
Thanks, Jim. Bye.
My pleasure.